Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 23rd of March 2022, and yeah, the gorgeous weather here continues. Sort of t-shirt weather today. First time in about 4, 5, 6 months since probably early October last year. So really nice. And I don't know about you, but I think we've already seen more consecutive days of sunshine this year than we did during the whole of last summer of 2021, and it's only March, so incredible. Let's hope this summer is way better than weather-wise than the last one, and as far as other things are concerned as well, of course. So I've just finished a job. I was changing over a load of lights, 5 lights, which was a lot easier than I thought. Luckily, it wasn't what we call 3-plated. It was a junction box with single cables coming down into each light position. When they're 3-plated, that means you've actually got 3 different cables with 9 wires coming into each light, which will all obviously have to be connected up in the right way. But yeah, when you've only got the one cable, 3 wires, it makes life a lot easier. So that is good, because I had 2 jobs yesterday which I thought were going to be easy and ended up being pigs of jobs. So it's very much a case, well, I say with my job, it's probably the same with every job, but certainly with this one, it's certainly a case of swings and roundabouts. You take the rough with the smooth, as well you do with most things in life, I guess. And just talking about a thing I saw in one of my Telegram feeds this morning over breakfast, there was this lady who, I don't know where it was, on Twitter or something, wherever it was, and what she was saying essentially was, I know a certain treatment doesn't stop you getting a certain ailment and doesn't stop you passing it on, but I still prefer kind of being around like-minded people who felt they were able to step up to the plate and do the right thing. And then I think someone had kind of replied along the lines of, translation, I've been really brainwashed and think that despite what's been proven, I still did the right thing. So but anyway, just going back to her comment, how were you doing the right thing? You just said that the thing doesn't stop you sort of getting a certain ailment and doesn't stop you passing it on. So how come you thought you were doing the right thing? And you weren't, were you? You were just, well, virtue signalling is what I'd classify it as personally. So, and I was just also thinking that for possibly the rest of our lives, certainly for a good few years to come, we're going to have, broadly speaking, 3 groups of people, aren't we? We're going to have our kind of group, which is probably about 10-15% of the population overall, who just can't understand why the world went so crazy over something that has got such a high survival rate. And furthermore, considering that it's got such a high survival rate, again, we can't understand why you would have something that's basically unproven thrown into you, when your odds with the actual thing that treatment is fighting against are so high. You know, your odds are so high. So we're going to have our lot, and then right on the other side of the coin, is going to be people like that lady who, again, are equally as bewildered and incredulous that there's people around who didn't take the narrative seriously and just went around willy-nilly, sort of not doing as they're told and not taking things that they should have taken, and they will be equally as hardcore as us. And then in the middle, you're going to have probably about 80% of the population who will have pretty much forgotten all of this in a year or two's time. Well, providing things don't go back into any future lockdowns or anything like that. But if this thing is over and it stays over, you are going to have sort of about 80% of people who would just sort of regard these last 2 years as a bit of a blip. Well, you know, it's a bit unfortunate, and it's a bit unfortunate that things went on for quite as long as they did. But hey ho, you know, at least it's over now, and we're getting back on with our lives now. And they'll just won't really think of it any more than a temporary blip on their lives, and you know, and they won't have nearly the level of animosity either towards us lot or towards the other lot that I talked about a minute ago. And I'm saying this, I've only just remembered actually, this is actually exactly 2 years that Johnson went up to his podium and said, you know, 3 weeks to flatten the curve. And well, it would have been nice if it was 3 weeks. To be fair, I did give him the benefit of the doubt at the time, and I was still a little bit, really? Do we really have to do this? But I sort of thought, well, you know, if it's going to save lives, I was buying into the narrative a little bit, and I was thinking, well, if it's going to save lives, then fair enough, but it better not go on for any longer than 3 weeks, or certainly no longer than 6 weeks. And then you better sort it out, and it better never ever happen again. You know, even if something 10 times worse comes along, you better just get it sorted. And then when it rolled into the first extension, and then the second extension, and then into the second lockdown, November 2020, third lockdown, sort of January 2021, I just thought, nah, you know, there's more to this. There's got to be more to this than what they're saying. And yeah, that in a nutshell has been my kind of progression through this. And from sort of not fully trusting the government, but sort of being basically on board, I suppose, to just being totally untrusting of the government and anti-government now, and just not trusting or believing anything they say anymore. And if they just kind of left it at the first 3 weeks, and they just sort of said, right, okay, thank you for locking down for this 3 weeks, but we can't stay locked down anymore. You know, just get on with the rest of your lives and take certain precautions if you want to. That would be our recommendation, and thanks for bearing with us. If that had been the case 2 years ago, then I probably wouldn't have come along on this journey that I've been on, and it may well still be, well, you know, whatever it was, about sort of 90% asleep still. So, and in some ways, I am grateful that this journey has brought me on the awakening journey, and that I am awake and I do realise what the world is. And rather than just going through this whole thing in totally ignorant bliss like that 80% of the population I was just talked about a minute ago will be doing. But boy, oh boy, do I wish they'd just lived up to their promise, and it really was just 3 weeks to flatten the curve and then no more. So, yeah, that is my thoughts here on the second anniversary of the announcement of the first lockdown. And yeah, and it's hasn't been the greatest of 2 years, not the best 2 years that any of us have had, but there have been certain compensations and certain rewards. Not only have I sort of gone through an awakening experience, but I've met so many fantastic people, whether it's you guys virtually, sort of through here. Well, some of you guys I've actually met on the shopping trips, of course, and also all the Stand in the Park people who I've met. Yeah, you know, I've just made so many new friends, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm not a person who makes friends that easily, to be honest with you. Probably in the 20 years that before this whole nonsense started, I probably hadn't made a single new friend, not in my own right. Lorraine, being the sociable lady she is, kind of makes friends a lot more easily than I do. And then obviously being a husband, when we go out, I kind of then become friends as well. But that's not the same as making a friend in your own right. And I hadn't done that with a single new friend for probably about 20 years. And then in the last year or two, I've made, I don't know, probably about 100 new friends. So it's just crazy, isn't it? But yeah, I do regard you guys as my friends. I do regard the people at the Stand in the Park, who I see on a very regular basis, as friends. And yeah, that is another compensation and another positive that's come out of these last 2 years. So it just goes to show you that there's always a positive out of every negative, always something good that comes out of everything that's bad. And yeah, it just happens. And even during the Second World War, which is probably one of the worst things that's happened in history, of course, well, there would have been plenty of babies born, and then from there, sort of children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren probably by now as well, but plenty of babies born because that war happened, who would have never been born had that war not happened, you know, because lots of people were sort of displaced, moving around, travelling, going into the army and, you know, everything else. Therefore, they would have met people that they would have never met, married people they would have never met. So, you know, there's a lot of, as I say, you know, just trying to make the point that there's a lot of positives that come out, even out of the worst situations. And yeah, so just reflecting on this second anniversary, so not the greatest of 2 years, but there have been positives. I'll leave it there on that thought. Back tomorrow. Tim from Fair Play Now. Thanks for watching.